The palace was quiet that night. The long halls were dark, and only soft lights glowed on the walls. Everyone believed the royal family was asleep, safe behind thick doors and heavy guards. But inside the palace, something was very wrong. Princess Charlotte woke up suddenly. Her small heart was beating fast. She did not know why. The room felt strange, too silent, too cold. She called softly for her mother, but no one answered. She climbed out of bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor. She walked to the door and opened it slowly. The hallway was empty. Charlotte stepped outside, thinking her mother might be nearby. She walked a few steps, rubbing her eyes. Suddenly, the door behind her closed with a loud click. Charlotte turned quickly and tried to open it again. It did not move. She pushed harder. Nothing. Fear filled her chest. She knocked on the door with her small hands. She knocked again and again. Her voice shook as she called for help. No one came. The palace hallway felt long and scary. The lights were dim, and shadows stretched across the walls. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. She waited. Minutes passed. Then more time passed. Her feet hurt from standing on the cold floor. She sat down and hugged her knees. She cried quietly at first, then louder. Her voice echoed, but still no one answered. At some point, she heard footsteps. Charlotte stood up quickly. Hope rushed through her. She saw Camilla at the far end of the hallway. Charlotte ran toward her, crying, asking for help. Her voice was weak but full of fear. Camilla stopped walking. She looked down at Charlotte with a hard face. There was no warmth in her eyes. Charlotte reached out her hands, begging to be taken back to her room. Camilla spoke coldly. She told Charlotte she should not be wandering at night. She said the child needed to learn lessons. Then she turned away and walked off, leaving Charlotte alone in the dark hallway. Charlotte froze. She could not believe what had just happened. She cried louder, her tears falling fast. She ran back to the door and banged on it with all her strength. Her hands started to hurt. Her throat burned from crying. No one came. The night grew colder. The palace was silent. Charlotte curled up near the wall, her night closed in against the stone floor. She hugged herself, shaking. Her feet were red and sore. She felt forgotten. Hours passed. Charlotte did not sleep. She watched the light slowly change as night moved toward morning. Her body was tired, but fear kept her awake. Her stomach hurt. Her head felt heavy. She whispered for her mother again and again. Finally, when the sky outside began to lighten, Charlotte made a decision. She stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to move. She remembered the way to the outer courtyard. She remembered the guards there. She believed they would help her. She walked carefully through the long halls, opening doors quietly. Her feet left small marks on the cold floor. Every sound made her jump. But she kept going, holding on to hope. When she reached the side exit, she pushed the door open with all her strength. Cold morning air hit her face. Charlotte stepped outside, barefoot on the stone ground. The cold was sharp, but she did not stop. She ran. Her hair was messy, her face wet with tears. She ran as fast as her small legs could carry her. At the gate, a royal guard stood watching the quiet grounds. He saw something move and straightened. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Then he saw her clearly. A small child, barefoot, crying, running toward him. His heart dropped. Charlotte reached him and collapsed against his legs. She cried so hard she could not breathe. She clutched his uniform like it was the only safe thing left in the world. Her voice broke as she spoke. "She locked me outside," Charlotte cried. "All night. I was cold. I was scared." The guard knelt down instantly. His training told him to stay calm, but his heart was racing. He wrapped his coat around Charlotte and lifted her gently. Her body was cold. Too cold. He carried her inside the guard room and called for help. Other guards came running. They stared in shock at the child in his arms. No one spoke at first. The silence was heavy. The guard gave Charlotte warm water and covered her with blankets. She slowly stopped crying, but her hands still shook. He spoke gently, asking what happened. Charlotte told everything in broken words. About the door, about the hallway, about Camilla. Every word felt like a knife. The guards exchanged serious looks. This was not a small mistake. This was dangerous. This was unforgivable. One guard checked the time logs. Another looked at camera records. The hallway cameras had been turned away. The door log showed it was locked manually. Someone had done this on purpose. Word spread fast through the palace. Prince William was woken immediately. He dressed quickly and ran through the halls. His heart pounded. When he entered the guard room and saw Charlotte wrapped in a guard's coat, his face changed completely. He dropped to his knees and opened his arms. Charlotte ran to him and cried into his chest. She told him she was scared. She told him she thought no one would come. William held her tightly, his hands shaking. His eyes burned with anger and pain. Kate arrived moments later. When she saw Charlotte's feet, red and bruised, she gasped. She fell to her knees and pulled her daughter close. Tears streamed down her face. She kissed Charlotte's hand again and again, whispering that she was safe now. The guard stood quietly, his jaw tight. He had served the crown for many years, but this was the hardest moment of his life. William stood up slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were fierce. He asked one question. Who did this? No one answered out loud, but every eye turned in the same direction. And at that moment, the palace knew this was only the beginning. The room felt heavy after William asked his question. No one spoke, but everyone understood. The silence said more than words ever could. Kate held Charlotte close, rocking her gently. Charlotte's small body was still shaking, even though she was safe now. William looked down at his daughter. Her feet were red and bruised. Her hair was messy. Dark marks showed under her eye from a night without sleep. His heart ached. He felt guilt like a stone in his chest. He had trusted the palace to protect his child. A senior guard finally stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. He explained what they had found. The hallway door had been locked by hand. The cameras near that area had been moved away for several hours. This could not happen by accident. William closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his expression was cold and controlled. He asked for all records, all logs, and all names of people who were awake that night. He wanted everything. Kate listened quietly, her arms never leaving Charlotte. She felt anger rising inside her, but she focused on keeping her daughter calm. Charlotte rested her head on her mother's shoulder, exhausted. Her eyes opened and closed slowly. William turned to the guards and thanked them for saving his child. His voice was steady, but his hands were tight at his sides. He told them they did the right thing. Then he ordered the palace to be locked down. No one was allowed to leave. Word spread fast through the palace. Servants whispered. Guards stood taller. Everyone felt something serious was happening. The early morning calm was gone. Fear replaced it. Charlotte was taken to her room. A doctor checked her feet and wrapped them gently. He said she would be fine, but she needed rest. Kate stayed beside her, holding her hand. Charlotte fell asleep quickly, her face still wet with dried tears. William stood near the window, staring outside. The sky was bright now, but inside him was darkness. He thought about how long Charlotte had been alone, how small she was, how helpless she must have felt. His jaw tightened. He left the room and walked quickly down the hall. Guards followed him, but he did not notice. His mind was focused on one thing only. Truth. Camilla was sitting in a private lounge when William entered. She looked surprised to see him so early. He did not greet her. He did not sit down. He stood in front of her, tall and silent. She asked what was wrong. William spoke slowly. He said Charlotte had been locked outside her room all night. He said she had been found barefoot, crying, cold, and alone. He watched Camilla's face carefully. For a brief moment, her eyes shifted. She said it was impossible. She said it must be a mistake. She said the child must have wandered off on her own. Her voice was calm, but her hands moved slightly. William stepped closer. He told her the door was locked by hand. He told her the cameras were moved. He told her Charlotte had seen her in the hallway and asked for help. Camilla's face hardened. She said children imagine things. She said discipline was important. She said Charlotte needed to learn rules. William lost control. His voice rose, loud and sharp. He said no lesson ever leaves a child alone in the cold. He said no rule excuses fear. He said no position gives the right to hurt his daughter. Guards entered the room quietly and stood by the walls. Camilla looked around, realizing she was no longer in control. William ordered her to stay where she was. He said there would be a full investigation. He said she was not allowed near his children again until the truth was clear. Camilla laughed softly, trying to hide her fear. She said he was overreacting. She reminded him of tradition and family. William answered simply, "My children come first." He walked out. Behind him, the guards remained. The palace council was called within the hour. Senior officials gathered in a long room, their faces serious. William stood at the head of the table. Kate joined later, after Charlotte fell into deep sleep. William spoke clearly. He shared everything the guards had found. He did not raise his voice. He did not show emotion. That made his words even stronger. Kate spoke next. Her voice trembled, but her words were powerful. She described Charlotte's fear. She described the marks on her feet. She asked one question. How did this happen in a palace full of adults? No one had an answer. The council agreed on immediate action. Camilla's access to private family areas was removed. Guards were reassigned. Cameras were checked and secured. A formal inquiry was opened. This was no longer a family matter. It was a failure of protection. Later that day, William returned to Charlotte's room. She was awake now, sitting in bed with soft toys around her. When she saw him, she smiled weakly. He sat beside her and held her hand. He asked if she was scared now. Charlotte shook her head. She said the guard was kind. She said her father came. She said her mother held her. William kissed her forehead. He promised her something. No one will ever lock you out again. Charlotte nodded and closed her eyes. Outside the room, Kate watched him. Tears filled her eyes. She knew this was not over. What happened to Charlotte had cracked something deep inside the palace. That night, the palace was silent again. But it was a different silence. It was tense, heavy, waiting. Someone had crossed a line. Morning light filled the palace, but peace did not return. Guards moved quietly, speaking in low voices. Doors that were once open now required permission. Cameras were checked again and again. The palace felt like it was holding its breath. William did not sleep. He sat in his office, reading reports, watching security footage, and listening to every detail. Each new fact made his chest tighter. Someone had planned what happened to Charlotte. This was not careless. This was not a mistake. A senior guard entered and closed the door behind him. He spoke carefully. During the lockdown, a vehicle inspection had taken place. All cars inside palace grounds were checked, including Camilla's. William looked up. The guard said something unusual had been found. Inside Camilla's car, hidden under a false panel, were papers and a small device. The papers were notes. They listed private family routines, children's schedules, quiet hours, camera blind spots. The device was used to record sound. William stood slowly. His chair scraped against the floor. He asked one question. Was it active? The guard nodded. William felt anger rise like fire. His hands shook, but his voice stayed calm. He ordered the items brought to the council room. He wanted everything reviewed with witnesses present. Kate was informed carefully. She listened without speaking. When she heard about the notes on the children, her face turned pale. She thought of Charlotte alone in the dark hallway. Her heart pounded. She asked to see the papers herself. In the council room, the items were laid out on the table. The air was tense. Senior officials sat silently. William stood at the head. Kate sat beside him, her hands folded tightly. The notes were clear. Times, doors, camera angles, even comments written in cold words. One line stood out. It spoke about teaching discipline through isolation. Kate covered her mouth. William's eyes darkened. The guards explained the device. It could listen from nearby rooms. It had been used more than once. Logs showed activity during night hours. No one spoke for a long moment. Then William said Camilla would be brought in. When she entered the room, she saw the table. She saw the papers. Her confident walk slowed. She tried to smile, but it did not reach her eyes. William did not shout. He did not accuse. He asked her to explain. Camilla looked at the council and then at William. She said the notes were misunderstood. She said the device was for her safety. She said she feared threats. William picked up one paper and read a line aloud. His voice was steady. Isolation builds obedience. Camilla's face tightened. Kate stood up. She asked Camilla one simple question. She asked if any fear could ever excuse leaving a child alone in the cold. Camilla said nothing. The council ordered Camilla to remain under supervision. Her access was fully removed. Her car was taken for further inspection. The inquiry became official. Outside the room, whispers spread fast. Staff members were shocked. Some were angry. Others were scared. The palace had never seen something like this. William went straight to Charlotte. She was sitting by the window, drawing with colored pencils. When she saw her father, she smiled. That smile hurt him more than any anger. He sat beside her and asked what she was drawing. She said it was a god who helped her. She said he was brave. William hugged her gently. He asked if she remembered anything else from that night. Charlotte was quiet. Then she nodded. She said she heard voices near the door earlier. She said she felt scared before she even stepped out. She said the door closed very fast. William listened carefully. Every detail mattered. He thanked her and told her she was very brave. Charlotte smiled softly and went back to drawing. Kate watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes. Later that afternoon, the guard who found Charlotte was called in. William thanked him personally. He told him his actions saved the child and protected the future. The guard bowed his head, humbled. As the evening came, new information arrived. Security found records showing the hallway door had been tested days before. Someone had practiced locking it quietly. This made everything worse. William felt sick. He met with the council again. He told them this was no longer just about discipline or control. This was about safety, about power being used in the wrong way. The council agreed. Camilla would be moved out of the palace wing entirely. No exceptions. That night, Camilla packed quietly. Guards watched. She did not speak. Her face was hard, but her eyes showed anger and fear. As she left the wing, she passed the hallway where Charlotte had been locked out. She did not stop. Upstairs, Charlotte slept peacefully. Kate sat beside her bed, brushing her hair gently. William stood near the door, watching them. He felt both relief and pain. Relief that Charlotte was safe. Pain that someone inside the palace had caused this. Kate spoke softly. She said the palace must change. She said safety must come before titles. William agreed. He promised her that no matter the cost, he would protect their children. Outside, guards doubled their watch. Lights stayed on longer. The palace did not sleep easily. Something had broken, but something else had begun. Truth had stepped into the open. And once truth enters a palace, nothing remains the same. The palace did not feel the same after Camilla was moved out. The halls were quieter, but the quiet felt heavy. Every step echoed. Every door closing sounded louder than before. People walked carefully, as if the walls themselves were listening. William ordered changes immediately. Guards were added near the children's rooms. Cameras were checked twice a day. New rules were written and followed without question. No one complained. Everyone understood why. Kate stayed close to Charlotte. She slept in the same room with her for several nights. Charlotte often woke up from bad dreams. She would sit up suddenly, breathing fast, looking around in fear. Kate would hold her and whisper that she was safe, that no one would lock her out again. Charlotte did not speak much about that night, but her silence said enough. She no longer liked dark hallways. She asked for lights to stay on. She held Kate's hand tightly whenever they walked through the palace. William noticed everything. During the day, William worked non-stop. He met with advisors, security leaders, and palace officials. Everyone had questions. Some worried about reputation. Some worried about tradition. William listened, but his answer was always the same. My children come first. Outside the palace, rumors began to spread. Staff talked. Guards whispered. Something serious had happened, and people could feel it. The press sensed it too. Questions started coming. The palace released short statements, saying there was a private family matter and security review. But pressure grew. Kate felt it strongly. She had always believed the palace was a safe place for children. Now she knew that belief was broken. One evening, she sat with William in their private sitting room. The lights were low. The room was quiet. She told him she felt angry. She said she felt guilty for not noticing sooner. She said she felt afraid that power had been used against a child. William listened. He told her he felt the same. He said he trusted the wrong people. He said he would never forgive himself for that night. Kate took his hand and told him something important. "This is not your fault," she said, "but what we do next matters." Those words stayed with William. The council met again. This time, the mood was tense. Evidence was reviewed again. Timelines were clear. The notes from the car, the camera blind spots, the door practice. It all showed planning. One official asked quietly if the findings should ever become public. William answered calmly. He said the truth should never be hidden if it protects children. He said silence protects the wrong people. Some officials were uncomfortable. This kind of honesty was rare, but no one argued. Meanwhile, Camilla remained under watch in another residence. She did not speak to the family. She sent messages asking to explain. William did not respond. Kate did not read them. Camilla's confidence faded. She realized this was no longer about control. It was about consequences. Back in the palace, Charlotte slowly began to smile again. She played with her toys. She laughed with her brothers. But sometimes, without warning, she would stop and look scared. Loud sounds made her jump. Closed doors made her nervous. One afternoon, the guard who helped her visited. He stood at the doorway, unsure. Charlotte saw him and smiled brightly. She ran to him and hugged his leg. "You saved me," she said. The guard's eyes filled with tears. He knelt down and told her she was very brave. Kate watched the moment and felt a deep mix of sadness and pride. That night, William stood alone in the hallway where Charlotte had been locked out. The lights were brighter now. Cameras pointed clearly. God stood nearby. He touched the door handle. He imagined his daughter knocking, crying, waiting. His chest tightened. He promised himself that this hallway would never hurt anyone again. The next day, a final report was prepared. It was clear. There was no doubt left. The actions were intentional. Harm was caused. Trust was broken. William called a private meeting with senior family members. His voice was steady. He explained everything. Some were shocked. Some were silent. Some tried to excuse the behavior. William stopped them. He said protecting children was not a discussion. It was a duty. The decision was made. Camilla would no longer have any role involving the children or private family life. Her influence inside the palace would end. It was a strong decision, a painful one, but it was final. Kate felt relief and sadness at the same time. She did not celebrate. She only felt peace knowing Charlotte was safe. That evening, William read Charlotte a story before bed. She curled beside him, calm and warm. When he finished, she looked up at him and asked a question. "Daddy, will the palace be kind now?" William swallowed hard. "Yes," he said, "it will be." Charlotte smiled and fell asleep. William stayed there for a long time, watching her breathe. Outside, the palace lights glowed against the dark sky. Inside, something important had changed. Power no longer stood above protection. Silence no longer hid harm. The palace had been tested, and it was learning, slowly, how to heal. The palace slowly began to breathe again. Days passed after the final decision, and a quiet calm settled over the walls. It was not the old calm that came from ignoring problems. This calm came from truth being spoken and action being taken. God stood with renewed purpose. Staff worked with care. Everyone knew something important had changed. William walked through the palace each morning with clear eyes. He no longer felt unsure. The weight on his chest had not vanished, but it had changed. It was no longer guilt. It was responsibility. Kate focused on healing. She spoke gently with Charlotte every day. They talked about fear in simple words. Kate told her that being scared did not mean being weak. She told her it was okay to remember, and it was okay to forget. Charlotte listened closely, holding her mother's hand. Slowly, Charlotte began to change. She started walking through the halls again. At first, the guard stayed very close. The lights stayed on. The door stayed open. Charlotte looked around carefully, but she did not cry. One afternoon, she stopped in the hallway where everything had happened. Kate froze, but Charlotte did not panic. She looked at the door, then at her mother, and then she smiled softly. She said she was not scared anymore. Kate knelt down and hugged her tightly, tears filling her eyes. That moment felt like a small victory. William worked with the council to create new rules. These rules were simple but strong. No child would ever be left alone without supervision. No door near a child's room could be locked without alerting guards. All cameras would remain active, always. More than rules, William asked for something else. He asked for honesty. He told the council that silence hurts more than truth. He said protecting image should never come before protecting people. Some officials were uncomfortable, but most agreed. The palace needed to grow. Outside the palace, the world began to sense change. The royal family appeared together again, calm and united. William stood taller. Kate smiled more gently. Charlotte held her parents' hands proudly. The public did not know every detail, but they saw something real. They saw care. They saw protection. They saw love. Inside the palace, Camilla's absence was deeply felt. Some felt anger. Some felt confusion. Some felt relief. But no one questioned the reason anymore. Camilla sent one final letter. William read it alone. The letter spoke of misunderstanding and regret, but it did not speak of responsibility. William folded it carefully and placed it away. He did not respond. Kate asked him later if he felt peace. William said peace does not always come from forgiveness. Sometimes it comes from boundaries. Charlotte continued to grow stronger. She laughed more. She slept better. She no longer asked for the lights to stay on all night. Sometimes she still held Kate's hand tightly, but she no longer shook. One evening, Charlotte asked William a question. "Daddy," she said, "why did the God help me?" William smiled softly. He told her that some people choose kindness even when it is hard. He told her that courage can look quiet and gentle. Charlotte thought for a moment and nodded. "I want to be brave like that," she said. William hugged her and told her she already was. The God who saved Charlotte was honored quietly. No cameras. No speeches. Just a simple thank you and a new role close to the family. He accepted it with humility. He said he only did what was right. Kate later told William that one good person can change a whole story. William believed that. Months later, the palace felt warmer. Not because of lights or decorations, but because trust was slowly being rebuilt. Children's laughter echoed again. Doors no longer felt heavy. Hallways no longer felt cold. One afternoon, William stood with Kate in the garden, watching their children play. Charlotte ran barefoot across the grass, laughing freely. The sight made Kate's eyes shine with emotion. William took her hand. He told her that night had changed him forever. He said he would never again assume safety. He would always check, always ask, always protect. Kate squeezed his hand and told him that was what being a parent truly meant. As the sun set behind the palace, the family walked inside together. Guards nodded respectfully. Staff smiled warmly. The palace felt like a home again, not just a place of power. Charlotte paused at the door and looked back. She smiled. The palace had once been a place of fear. Now it was a place of care. Inside those walls, a lesson had been learned. That children must always be protected. That power must never silence pain. That love must always come first.